So if you want to make a man, you got to know the history. You got to know the history of men. You got to understand oppression. So let me give you a quick couple-minute history lesson. When we landed on this planet, yeah, because if you're religious, your God is the God of the universe, not just Earth. So when the first set of Earthlings started getting used to the Earth and started building the Earth with advanced technology, what happens is, as Earthlings and humans, we have to learn how to work together. As we overpopulate, we lose sight of our cultural boundaries, our morals, our principles, our guidelines as a culture. We veer off. And as we veer off, our standards, morals, principles, and culture get diluted and diluted. And then we look at what resources allow us to prosper and fulfill who we are. That's the nature of men. So what happens is, as time goes by, tribes and tribes and tribes and tribes and tribes and tribes are differences. Things get diluted and confused. And at one point, groups of tribes pick certain areas that they are fueled by greed and possessiveness. And they say, this is ours. And in this area, to be able to fulfill themselves as men, you have to have something that you own, even if it's your woman. So they say, this is what we own, and we're going to defend our way of looking at things, our religion, our culture, our way of life. As time goes by, we're going to fast forward to people who were in exile, sent to North America on ships as prisoners, as the worst scoundrels. Ship them over there. They get to North America and they go, wait a minute. All these resources is here, and all these black people are here talking about nothing belongs to nobody? It's just free and open? No, we gotta use the same trickery that developed Europe. We gonna use it here to develop our own here. And the same nature of greed, the same nature of possessiveness, the same natures and desires of saying that I have to fulfill myself by saying I'm a king and I own something and I have something. That's why you see the big $1 million chains and the big cars and all the big houses, because you got to have something as a man that you own, even if it's your woman. So now, in making a man and understanding the psychology of a man, you have to understand, if he's a man in America, especially he's a black man in America, you have to understand that there's a handful of men who sat down and strategized. This is how we could dominate this whole country. We're going to sit down and call ourselves the founders. We're going to create our own rules, our own tyranny, our own laws, our own religion. We're going to create, and anybody who does not want to follow what we create, they ain't a part of us. We're going to wipe them out. And those handful of families, those founding families, throughout the generation, their number one occupation is maintaining power. They don't know nothing about getting up and going to work. They don't know nothing about a 9 to 5. They don't know nothing about nothing. If they seen 300 acres of land and you owned it and you were dark skinned, because if you think Native Americans and black people are two different people, you need to go read my books, Read the Blacks. Same people. They look just like me. They just say they Native American. So, them same people come in, they wipe out hundreds of thousands to maintain their dominance. Then they create governance, constitutions, the amendments. They create these doctrines that other people have to follow. They don't have to follow it. You want to know why Trump can deport U.S. citizens because this is the nature. So now, as time go by, these handful of families have their friends and the people in their secret societies that they pull in and say, we are born and raised to maintain dominance and keep order for our wealth and our good. Nobody else matters. You got to remember, the history of these people is wiping out hundreds of thousands of people. That's in their DNA and their blood. That's their nature, to maintain dominance. My kids will never, ever, ever lift a finger to work and be worth billions of dollars because I'm not willing to wipe out hundreds of thousands. So now let's bring it all home now to you who decide you want to make a man, because this should have been my introduction video. If you want to make a man, how are you going to prepare that man to deal with the dominance, the oppression, all the forces that's against him? If he's a black child, the only difference between black and white in America is that blacks are the only ones that have people who actively plot against their demise every day. Whether it's an alcohol company or a record company, they plot to get wealth off of black people's demise. That's the only difference. Everything else, racism is bullshit. But if you're going to raise a black man, you're going to have to realize that, listen, I'm going to tell you about oppression, how you going to deal with that. You're going to work hard to do as much thinking as possible to make as much money as possible by doing the least amount of effort. You're going to outthink the ones who've been oppressed, the ones who have been miseducated, misguided, the ones who get distractions thrown at them by marketing campaigns every single day. You're going to find your plot of land. You're going to build your paradise. You're going to build your family. After you build your family, you're going to build your village. After you build your family and village, you're going to build your school, your senior citizen centers, and your form of worship. Because you going to materialize your heaven right here on this earth. And once you're in accordance with the 5 obligations of man, check the other video, the 5 obligations of man. Once you're in accordance of all those things, you're going to have heaven on earth. That's one of the key ingredients of what to do when you're raising a man. You need to teach them the history of what it is to be a man. You need to teach them how that impacts their present situation, and then how to look forward with a plan for the future. That's how you teach a man.